Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 473.
Live on your TV.
Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Geoff has me planning a trip to New York. Luke has a pair of trick-taking games to recommend, and we have a new segment that we were supposed to run last week. Plus, we answer some questions from the mailbag, present a tale of betrayal, and discuss games we would enjoy seeing played on TV. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Kirk Fogg to my Olmec, Tom Vassell.
Yeah, Eric, what?
Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know they're making a movie about Legends of the Hidden Temple?
Mm-hmm.
Like kids go and they go to like a Legends of the Hidden Temple themed theme park with Kirk Fogg, and he's there, and then the kids sneak into the temple and they find out everything's real, and Olmec's actually in the temple, and there's a green monkey, and there's the Steps of Knowledge and all sorts of stuff. I had no idea this existed until I was looking up who's Kirk Fogg and how to spell his name properly. I found this out today. I feel like I've been missing out on trailers I could be watching.
I am less thrilled than you, if only because this is the first time I've ever heard of Kirk Fogg.
He was the host of Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Did not ever watch it. I know you've talked about it in a previous show.
Well, I got my kids watching it recently. You can watch some old episodes on YouTube, and so they were, excited.
I'm working really hard to try to remember what Eric's talked about in a previous show. So,
thank you. I appreciate the effort.
People in my game group come up to me and say, "Hey, goldfish," and I blame Eric for this.
You could blame me for the name. Yes.
Okay, so, folks, here's the deal. We record these episodes early. So we do not know, at this point in time, who won our mega contest.
Yes, but the contest is, in fact, closed.
It is. So stop sending in answers immediately.
Yes.
But I will announce it on Board Game Breakfast. You should watch our videos anyway. So Board Game Breakfast, when I do the big winner thingamabobber, I'll also have the winner here. And there's a chance that will be announced before the one on our show, which will be the next show that will announce the winner. So, okay, well, we're going to jump right into this. We have some fantastic games to talk about. Well, okay, we have a few fantastic games to talk about. Eric, I think you should start out with, last time you were talking about a very strange Osprey game.
Yep.
Now you're going to talk about one here that, on first blush, the box at least, looked incredibly boring.
Yes. Well, this is an abstract game called Agamemnon. It is I hesitate to call it area control, but it's kind of like area control. It's an abstract. Each player is representing an army, and you've got there are a bunch of circular tiles, and some have just spears on them, 1, 2, or 3 spears. Others are leaders that also have 1, 2, or 3 spears, but they also have letters, A, B, C, D, E. And then there's a couple of special tiles I'll get to in a second. The board is made up of spaces, circular spaces, and these are all connected via different routes. And they're connected with sort of tiles that represent how the relationship between those spaces will be determined. So there's 3 different types of these little connectors, and you end up then with strings. So there might be 4 spaces in a string, 5 spaces in a string. They could go even longer, or just 1 or 2 spaces in a string connected by these little tiles. And some of the tiles say the strongest strength, the most strength in this thread will win that thread. Or it might be the biggest leader, the best leader, the closest to A wins this thread. Or the third kind is the most tiles of a particular type, of a particular color. So whoever has the most tiles, regardless of strength, wins that thread. At the end of the game, once you've placed all of your tiles, you will evaluate all of these threads, and then you actually pick up the tile that represents that connection. And that's worth 1 point at the end of the game. So if I am in that thread that has, biggest strength, best strength, and it's got 5 connectors, and I have more spears than you do, I get those 5 connection tiles, and that counts 5 points for me. How I place these figures is I have all of my tiles, they're face down, and I flip up, if I'm the start player, I flip up 1 and place 1 anywhere on the board. And then from then on, it's flip up 2 and place them both somewhere on the board. That continues back and forth until the last player has only 1 left and gets to place in one of the last 3 spaces on the board. The tiles I didn't talk about are these special weaver tiles. One, you place it on the board, and it allows you to change the connections. So I can, if I place it on one space, I can then take 2 of the connections attached to that space and swap them, which can change up the arrangement of these threads. So now maybe the strength thread is a lot shorter than it used to be, or longer if I think I'm the strongest one in the thread. The other special weaver tile splits up threads. So I could place this, it has like an omega symbol on it, and you plop that down, it splits up a thread into 2 pieces. And so maybe you cut down your opponent's score on that particular one, or cut off their leader so that your leader is the strongest one in the thread. It's, again, I hesitate to call it area control, but it's almost like spaghetti control, thread control, spaghetti majority sort of game. Mechanically, it's kind of fascinating. It's a different way to look at area control. But when you boil right down to it, it's pretty abstract and pretty dry. I mean, I didn't really feel like I was engaged with my army when it's just a bunch of tiles of varying values, and the luck of the draw. But didn't you go in
knowing that?
You take a look at it, and it's it's going to be pretty dry. But the key is are the mechanisms strong enough to win that over? And I don't know if the novelty of this, thread control was enough for me to overcome my detachment from the theme. There is a flip side to the board that has like a random setup that based on some setup tiles you can draw, the map's going to look different each time you play. But I don't know if that variety helps much either. It just seems a little too dry for me. Interesting. Novel. If you're an abstract fan, it's probably worth a look. But for me, I wasn't engaged enough to give Agamemnon a thumbs up. It's sort of a pass for me.
All right. Well, here I have the exact opposite of that. Now, we all know that like 99.9% of Stronghold games are garbage.
99 point... Wait, what?
That's not true, folks. Okay, I'm just kidding. He actually makes many, many, many great games. But I was talking to him this week, and I said, Terraforming Mars is your best game you've ever done.
Wow.
Yes, I really love this game.
Ooh.
Instantly into my collection. Terraforming Mars feels like, now not exactly, so don't hold me to this, but feels like almost a board game version of Race for the Galaxy. So in Terraforming Mars, you are collectively terraforming Mars. It's not a cooperative game, but you are all working together on this planet. You just want to be the best at terraforming Mars.
Okay.
And so the temperature starts at like negative 30 degrees Celsius. There's 0 oxygen on the planet, and there's no water. So you are over time adding oceans and increasing the temperature and getting the oxygen. And when they all reach certain levels, boom, the game's over. You've terraformed Mars.
Neat.
You're doing this by collecting resources, money, iron, platinum, some other heavy metal. You have heat and energy and plants. And you are producing these every turn, but there's this huge deck of cards, and almost every card in this deck is different. And you're deciding which of these cards you're going to build, and these cards will give you different buildings that will give you special abilities, or they're one-time events that you can do different things on the board. And so you're trying to manipulate the resources and build cities on Mars and build greenery on Mars, or maybe just produce some animals. Well, first you might be producing microbes. Some cards can't come out till the oxygen level's a certain level. But so you're just trying to get these cards out, and this card gives me heat, and then this card lets me take this heat and do this. And this card lets me increase the temperature of the planet a little bit, which gives me extra points. And this card does this and that. And each person starts with a different corporation, and they all have special abilities. And man, the whole time I'm engaged, like, oh, what cards am I going to build next? And I get to build this really cool engine. And it's not the same engine. Every game it's going to be different because I'm going to have different cards that I'm working with. And I'm really, really loving this game. Just so much fun that even when I get destroyed and come in last place, I don't care because I had such a fun time building a really fun engine. And maybe this time it was getting a bunch of animals on the planet. Or maybe this time it was I'm the king of the greenery. Or I have all the cities. You know, whatever it is. A lot of fun. It has some really cool, like, gold and silver cubes that are in the game. The artwork's okay. The production itself is a little bit lower than I would have preferred, maybe. But the gameplay is so much fun, I don't care. Love this game. One of the best of the year I played so far, Terraforming Mars.
Wow. Well, I mean, this has been on my radar for a while, but copies were pretty limited at Gen Con. I did not get one myself, but it's going on the wish list for sure.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I was, like, excited about lots of games. This one wasn't in my top 10. Because I had asked Boddicker about it, and he said, well, yeah, it's kind of a midweight to heavy Euro. And I was like, oh, yeah, all right. You know, and there was other Mars games coming out.
Yeah.
So I was like, huh, well. And then this one was done in conjunction with Frick's Games, and none of their games had really wowed me up to this point. So I thought, heavy and dry. It's not heavy. It's maybe upper middle. It can be heavy, I guess, but it's definitely not dry. The cards make thematic sense. It's just neat how you play this card, and this card makes a meteor hit the planet, and then different things happen. Oh, love it. Terraforming Mars.
I recently got to break out a very colorful wooden box full of wooden pieces called Junk Art. Junk Art is a dexterity stacking game from Pretzel Games. And Tom, you've talked about this before, but real quickly, each round you play usually 3 rounds. You can play more or less if you want, but each round you're playing bored. In a different city. And each city has a different set of rules. So in one city, you may have a hand of cards that represent the different pieces. There's 4 different colors, and they all have crazy shapes, and very few of them have flat angles, flat surfaces to build on. And so you may have a hand of cards, and then each turn you give one of these cards saying, hey, buddy, build that in your structure, and they have to put it into their thing. You've got a little black block, and you have to build everything off of that. But you can't touch the surface of the table. And usually if you knock over a certain number of pieces, you're out, or that ends the round, or there's some sort of trigger. With each city, it's almost like playing a bunch of mini games with these pieces. Another one, you had a stack of 10 cards that you had to work through as quickly as possible. So it was a speed game. And then another, you're building collectively. Everybody's working their way in the center. There's even a version that if you have a copy of Flick 'em Up, which is also a pretzel game, you can add Flick 'em Up pieces and Junk Art pieces and do a special like crossover episode in Junk Art. I enjoyed it. I'm not very strong with dexterity games. I don't plan well with these things. But my buddy who was playing, who's a big fan of dexterity games and smoked us completely, was totally enamored with this. And it's like, I need to get a copy. Can I run this at a convention I've got coming up? He was really excited about it. So that certainly has my interest as well. If he's that interested, this is one I need to explore further. I have not worked my way through all of the cities, and each one plays differently. It's going to work well with the family. Just colorful, tactile. You just have fun stacking these things together. It's gamers Jenga almost, with all sorts of crazy rules. Junk Art, thumbs up. I like it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have seen this and they're turning it off in their head like, oh, this is just another dexterity game. But this is an excellent, excellent dexterity game.
It's hard.
It's hard, but at the same time, it seems so well done. Like I said, all the pieces fit together in really good ways. Yeah, check it out. I'm not done talking about great games.
Okay.
Another great game, another one of my favorite of the year, is Codex. Now, Codex is a 2-player game from Serlin Games. And when I got the box for Codex, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. It's another mage versus mage game. It's not really a mage versus mage game. It's actually a game in which you are trying to destroy enemies' base. It's like a real-time strategy game as a card game, except your opponent's base has 20 life, and you're putting creatures in front of you and attacking their creatures, and so it seems a lot like Magic. However, it's like Magic, but it's deck building. It's like deck building, but you have a book of cards that you can stick into your deck like Mage Wars. So essentially, it's deck building, Mage Wars, and Magic rolled together with no collectability. Everything, if you buy like the deluxe box, you get everything. Otherwise, you get it pretty much everything you need. There's not going to be more cards made for this game, and it is amazing. It works so quickly, so much fun, because on your turn you have these. It's a deck building game, so you have 5 cards in your hand, and you decide if you're going to put these cards out. Who are you going to attack with your opponent? Are you going to put some of your cards on patrol? And then, what other actions are you going to take? Are you going to build a building? Are you going to put a hero out on the board? Are you going to level that hero up? And then when you're done, you discard all the cards in your hand and draw more. And then at the end of your turn, you go through your book and pick any 2 cards in it and stick them in your discard pile.
What? Ooh.
And then you just keep doing this till one player wins. Solid game. I'm telling you, I thought rip off when I played it. I thought, I don't know. I played like this beginner game, which was 1 hero versus 1 hero. And they're like, the full game is 3 heroes. I was like, all right, I'll try the full game. And then I played it like 8 times in a row.
Whoa.
And I was like, I'm going to try every color. There's 6 colors in the game. I'm going to try this book. I'm going to try this book. Then I played it against Melody. And then I played it several times with her. Then I played it against Jason. Really liking this game. I actually took all my Magic cards, stuck them in a box, and I'm selling them all. I'm doing it. I was thinking about doing that anyway. I kept a few of the. I kept a few of the commander decks. It really did. Why should I play Magic, which is a good game? But honestly, I love Magic a lot. It's a fun game. But my biggest problem with Magic is I make this cool deck and I don't see this card because it never comes up. This is a game where you're deck building, so the card is going to come up.
Right.
I like that. But I also love the Mage Wars idea, where you get to go through the book and pick a different card.
So you said you could pick any card from the book. Does that mean there's not a currency that you're buying the cards? You can just pick any one you want?
No. See, the cards are in your deck, but there's a gold currency that you will then use to pay to put these cards in play.
Gotcha.
Also, some cards have a tech level. There's tech level 0. That's your starting cards. Then there's 1, 2, and 3. And to get the different units out, you need to have built a building that can to tech level building 1, then 2, then 3. Also, each color is subdivided into 3 categories. So the red category is anarchy. There's an anarchy group of cards in it. There's fire. And there's something else. I forget the third one is. And then you have to pick one during the course of the game. You can build level 1 units of all 3 types. But when you get to level 2, you have to pick. Am I going to go with fire? Or am I going to go with anarchy? Or am I going to go with blood? That's the third one. There's a purple one. Am I going to do past, present, or future? If I'm doing white, I can do ninja or something else. If you're blue, you can be law, truth, or peace. And so each game I can say, this time I'm going to try out these units. And then there's magic spells that your heroes cast. You can level your heroes up. There's a lot going on in the game, but it's not that complex. And again, it cribs a lot of its ideas from other games, okay? I'm not saying this game is unique or original, really. But it puts them together in an incredibly streamlined way. Instantly, one of my favorite games of this genre. Really like it.
Interesting.
So that's Codex. I'm on a roll of loving games.
Last for me is IDW's Back to the Future game.
The other shoe drops.
Hang on. This is a resource management card game. You've got 3 timelines. You've got 1985, you've got 1955, and you've got 2015. And there are sort of missions on each of these 3 time periods that you can score and score victory points for achieving characters in each of these timelines. So say in 1985, if you get a Lorraine, a Biff, and a Marty card, you can, if you're in that time zone, discard those cards and earn victory points. And that's the primary mechanism of gaining points. There's other ways to do it too. There are 6 roles in the game, all the major characters. Jennifer too, she's sort of a wild. And on your turn, you will choose one of these characters. They have some sort of special ability that may allow you to do things more easily, play certain cards more easily. Also, that is the character that you are able to play down onto the board. So you've picked a character. You then can move the DeLorean, which is going to require power currency. Each of the cards in your hand can be used for power. It can be used for time. It can be used as a character itself to play down onto your surface. And I think it's got all the research. Oh, and it's also got victory points on the bottom that can be banked in certain ways. So you can move the DeLorean. That's going to cost you 3 power. You got to fill the flux capacitor and fly the DeLorean to one of the 3 time periods. You can move it. You can play a character. And depending on where you are and what card you're playing, you may have to pay costs to do that. Each character is going to cost time to play, so you have to discard other cards in order to play that character. You have to be in the right time zone, so if I have Lorraine from 1955, I have to have the DeLorean in 1955. Also, if I'm in one of the earlier time periods, I have to pay time ripple points. And that's more cards that get discarded to a special pile that are worth VP at the end of the game, but I still have to pay that cost in order to play those characters. So if I'm in 1955, I have to pay 2 cards. If I'm in 1985, I pay 1 card. And if I'm in 2015, I pay no additional cards, just the time. So it's expensive to play these characters. You have to spend a couple turns charging up cards before you can actually play these guys down on the board. And if you manage to get enough characters, the right combination of characters in a particular time zone, and you have the DeLorean in that time zone, you can achieve one of these plot cards and earn victory points, and they're in a cascade. So, it may start at 16 points, then 14, then 12 points. Then you draw cards based on where you are. If you are in 2015, you get 2 cards. If you're in 1985, you get 1 card. If you're all the way back in 1955, no cards. So it's worth more points to achieve objectives in 1955. But it's harder to get there. You get fewer resources. It's more expensive, which is interesting. This continues until you've completed, you've run out of objective cards in 2 of the 3 time zones. Most points wins. You can also achieve little tokens if you don't put down a character on your turn or achieve one of the plot cards. You get a token that can be used as currency for moving the DeLorean or paying for characters. Those are also worth points at the end of the game. The stuff you've stuffed under the token for the ripple points are worth VP. Characters you've played out in front of you are worth VP if you didn't use them to achieve objectives. And then most points wins. The rulebook could use a little help. I had to look out for some clarifications on Board Game Geek for sure. It's a little vague. But other than that, I found it to be kind of interesting. It's very, very puzzly, difficult to get stuff done, but you have to use cards for different uses. You have to manage those resources. You have to grab the characters that you want in order to play the characters you want and get the abilities you want. It's sort of a difficult thing to maneuver, but I found it an interesting challenge. And I know this has not been received terribly well, and I'm curious to hear exactly why. I did not watch your review, Tom, but I liked Back to the Future. I thought it was fun.
Okay.
I've refrained, but here's my thing. First of all, the theme is almost non-existent. Yes, there's pictures of the characters on the cards, and there's pictures of things that happen in the movies, but it just doesn't feel like Back to the Future at all. It feels like you're trying to solve a puzzle.
Okay.
And in Back to the Future, they went back and forth a few times. They didn't travel back 800 different times.
Yeah, I kind of liked that, though.
Secondly, some characters are incredibly more useful than others. Well, if you actually know what they do, since one of the characters has a special power not actually printed on the card.
Yes.
Okay. Then the fact is that card deck is everything in the game, right? So you draw these cards, you're like, okay, I need to use these cards to do this, so I need to go here, I need to spend some time units, I need to go put this character card, but wait, I can only play a character card of the person I'm using at this point in time, and I can only play it in the area that I'm in with the DeLorean. Okay, I got these cards out. Oh, I almost got this mission done. Oh, someone did it before me. Oh. Okay, well then I'll go do this other mission over here. And I did that one step before Bob did. And it's just, there's no fun in it. There's no entertaining. You're not playing out scenes from Back to the Future. You're just playing cards with really bad artwork, by the way.
Really?
Yes,
I mean, it's
come on,
comic
Eric.
book style scenes from the movie.
Badly drawn comic book style scenes from the movie.
I think they were supposed to make it not look like Michael J. Fox.
Well, they succeeded.
Like contractually.
Then don't make the game. No, I'm serious. If you can't make the main character look like the main character, why are you making the game? It's just not fun. You just move pieces around for a while and get some points. It doesn't ever feel like you're doing anything time-wise. I could say, I'm at the store, I'm at the supermarket, and I'm here, and it doesn't have anything to do with the future or the past. And there's all these fiddly rules. Here you can draw 2 cards. Here you can't draw any. Why? I don't know. You just can draw more cards when you're in this time frame. Here you can play this character, but you can't play him here. Why? Because that's what it says on the card.
Yeah.
All these fiddly rules, and it just falls down to just not being fun at all. Now, I will defer that Eric enjoyed it. I'm not. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But if you're listening to this show, you probably won't.
See, I think this falls on the theme versus mechanics thing. I found mechanically to be an interesting game. And if there was a little bit of a misfire or mismatch in the theme, that didn't bother me nearly as much as it does you. And so I had fun
to be
solving
clear,
the
I
puzzle.
also hate the mechanics.
Okay. I found it. I found the challenge
Yes,
interesting.
But the mismatched theme is very problematic for me.
All right, that was Back to the Future from IDW. Oh, and it comes with a Matchbox DeLorean.
What? I didn't get that.
My copy came with a Matchbox DeLorean. So instead of a cardboard token, I have a Matchbox DeLorean.
Was this like a special pre-order thing?
It came in the box. Maybe I have the second edition.
Well, that's cool. I'll up it a 0.5. No, listen, I just bought my son some Hot Wheel cars. I'm very excited about this. My girls have no interest in Hot Wheel cars. I'm not saying they can't play with them. They just have never wanted to drive cars around.
Right.
He does, and so I'm very pleased about this. I'm going to get tracks, and we're going to roll them down the steps, and this has nothing to do with games. So you know what? Let's just end there. That's a good note to end on, and let's go to something awesome I'm very jealous about.
Yeah. It's time for GameTek with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
I got to see the future a few weeks ago. My wife Susan and I had an opportunity to go to the new Ghostbusters Dimension attraction at Madame Tussauds Whack Museum in New York City, right off of Times Square. It opened in July, and I'd read some really impressive things, so we made a point of going. Even if my expectations set really high, I was still blown away. So what is Ghostbusters Dimension? It's a combination of virtual reality, laser tag, and being inside a movie. You go through in groups of up to 4 people. Each wears a backpack called your Proton Pack, which has a computer, batteries, and the haptic elements of the game. You wear a full VR helmet that completely covers your eyes, so you only see what is shown to you by the screens mounted in the goggles. This is not like Google Glass, where it overlays computer information onto the real world. In Ghostbusters, you only see what the computer shows you. And you have your proton gun, and this is where the fun begins. With your helmet off, the guns just look like black pieces of plastic with a trigger, but once you put the helmet on, your gun looks like a real proton gun with animated bits, indicators for status, sparks flying off of it, and more. And as you move it around, the computer on your back knows where your gun is and where it's pointing, and when you shoot at ghosts, you see typical Ghostbustery beams shooting out from them and leaving marks on the walls and ceilings. And with your goggles on, the room that you're in is also completely rendered by the computer. It knows where the walls in the real world are, and maps wallpaper, bookcases, and more onto those walls. If you see a wall in your goggles, you can actually reach out and touch it in the virtual world. Now, I've had an Oculus Rift system for a year, and it's really, really neat, and I still regularly play games with it. But one of the drawbacks to VR systems is that when you see something in front of you, it's not really there. You can't reach out and touch it or grab it. But in the Ghostbusters Dimension experience, it's all really there. When you walk through a door, you can reach out and feel the door frame. At one point, I bumped into something and looked down and saw a cartoon armchair. And I reached out, and sure enough, there was an actual armchair there in the play area. You also see the other players, but they look like Ghostbusters with the overalls and everything. And as they get hit by ghosts, you'll see them get covered in slime, or you can see yourself if you look down. There are a series of rooms that you move through as you progress through the experience, and they all hold their own surprises. The helmets also have mics and headphones, so you can clearly hear the sound effects as well as talk with the other players. Now, there are a bunch of great touches and surprises, and I don't want to ruin them in case you head out to try the ride, but I will describe one part which is mentioned in most of the reviews. At one point, a crack opens in a wall, and you need to go outside the skyscraper that you're heading up, onto a ledge, and then onto a window washer platform. Now, I'm not great with heights, but I'm usually okay with it on the Oculus Rift. But here, I just freaked out. I was the closest one to the crack, and the other team members started telling me to head outside, but I just said to them, I will go out when I am ready to go out. Eventually, my rational brain conquered my lizard one and convinced it everything was going to be okay, and there wasn't any actual danger. And I gingerly stepped out and grabbed tight to the railing, which I could see in the virtual world, and thankfully was in the real world as well, and started to shoot ghosts with one hand while holding on for dear life with the other. It was amazing and exhilarating. Now, I reached out to the company that designed it, called The Void, and they graciously agreed to be interviewed for Ludology. If you're all interested in this, please go check that out. Now, I'm very excited about the future of this technology. It was as immersive as the best Disney rides, but once you make the investment, it will be so much faster and cheaper to quickly reconfigure for different experiences. And although this wasn't a game per se, although I think there were multiple endings, it is easy to see how this could be extended in all kinds of interesting and amazing ways. So if you find yourself in New York City, I highly encourage you to check out Ghostbusters Dimension. This is Geoff Engelstein with GameTek.
All right.
I need to go to New York. I need to go to New York. I need to go to New York.
Well, here's the deal. I was just thinking the same thing. It's like, I normally don't wish to be living in or near New York, but I would love to go do this.
I mean, I could do this. I live close, unless it's sold out for the next 6 months, like Hamilton is. But I think I could make this happen. Wait, I have a seminar in New York. I'm going to a seminar in New York in like 4 weeks. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to do this.
Would you do it with people you don't know?
Oh, well, I think I might have to, but yeah, it would be more fun with people I do know.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a puzzle room.
Yeah, but still, I might have to.
The thing that actually got me most excited was what he said about the thing about him being scared of heights.
Yeah.
If it can make him scared of heights, then to me, that's pretty realistic.
That's what I really like, that talking about the physical objects in the room that are mapped to the VR. That's pretty awesome. That you can touch objects and touch the walls and stuff, and have that map to whatever it is you're seeing and experiencing in the game. That's really cool.
I'm not too worried about this. If this is popular, and it sounds like it might be, it will eventually start showing up in other big cities like Miami.
Yes.
And when that happens, I will send you pictures of us going in.
But this could be the next escape room concept.
I'm cool with that, actually, because I like this better than escape room type thing. Because I just like video games. I like the puzzles of an escape room, but come on, I get to shoot ghosts. Now, I will say this. I would not do this horror.
No.
Because I connected my phone. It has this. I got that 3D camera stuff, right?
Okay.
That we use on our channel sometimes, and it came with this little thing. This cardboard box you connect to your phone, and you can look around. And I was like, "This is amazing! I got to download some apps." So I downloaded this little creepy app that had some dolls sitting on the mantle. And I was looking at the dolls, and then I turned and I looked back, and the dolls were gone. And I heard footsteps running around the room, and I had headphones on. And was doing this, and I couldn't do it. I stopped. And so I said, all right, Z, you do it. And Z got like 30 seconds into it and quit. Sam wouldn't do it. No one could do it. I gave it to my kids, and Amy went and just stood and looked at one spot on the wall. Because I said I would, I want to see who could do it the longest. So that didn't count, actually. But it's really freaky.
Okay. Yeah, no, I couldn't do that. Give me a proton pack. I'll shoot some ghosts. That's as far as I get into the horror genre.
Right. I would rather this be, like fun and adventurous. Then I'm all for it. All right. Anyhow, let's get to something bad.
Hello, I'm Skip Hampton, with yet another tale of betrayal. My family and I will occasionally sit down to play my wife's favorite game, Monopoly. It's her game, and she can be quite competitive when playing. It was my wife, my 2 sons, and me. We play by the intended rules. No free parking bonus, auctions, and the rest. The one house rule we play will become obvious soon enough. After one son was eliminated, the other son, H11, felt the pressure and started to wheel and deal his way to a more comfortable spot. He started with me. He knew I needed his railways to complete my monopoly and my quest to beat my wife. He offered them up, but in return I would allow him to land on any of my properties for free. I figured at best he could grab second with this strategy and agreed. The game progressed, and my wife was clearly in the lead even with my deal. However, she needed a key property to complete a monopoly and ensure a victory. So she approached my son with a similar deal. His property for free access to her lands. He countered, I will trade all my properties and all my cash except $1. In return, I gain free access to any properties you own, current and future, and you pay any fees or fines I obtain in the game. My wife was hesitant until he sweetened the deal. He would pay him all his pass-go money. With this new agreement, I played my best, but eventually my wife forced me into bankruptcy. The wife celebrated and congratulated my son for a shared victory, but the son retorted, No, I won. My wife's expression sank. What do you mean we both won? We would have just gone back and forth. No one would have been the victor. My son responded, No, eventually the taxes and fees you would pay would bankrupt you. My wife, Maybe, but that would take a long time. My son responded once more, Yeah, but eventually I would win. It might take 5 years of constant play, but I would win. He then walked to his room and never spoke of it again. Okay. Bye.
Now, before we get chewed at over this, we know that some of the trading deals here are illegal in Monopoly.
Very much, and this is probably the reason why?
Okay, so yes, you're not allowed to make deals where you cannot charge people on future turns. In fact, I don't believe you're allowed to make any deal that involves that at all.
Right. You have to actually exchange something material.
Right.
But growing up, that used to be how all of our deals went down. All right, I'll let you get that Monopoly, but I get 3 free lands on your property. And it can be at my choice, not your choice, because I don't want to land on it when they're nothing. I want to wait until... So we had like these IOU things. Yeah, there's a reason why that's not allowed.
Yes, but you have to admit this is kind of clever here, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you I might take me 5 years to win, but I will.
Yeah.
It just takes those few times to land on. I don't know though. Is it possible that game could never end, that you would build up such a huge amount of money that you couldn't lose it all?
Well, I mean, the son got free landing on everything, right? He's got no property. He just has $1. And
right, I'm not talking about the son. I'm talking about her end, right? So she's getting $200 every time she passes a go.
Yeah.
She can pay there's the $75. There's the landing in jail. That's $50. Possibly that might happen.
Yeah.
There is the 10%.
I have to think that eventually... No, I think your income is still going to outweigh the taxes.
Maybe it won't. Maybe there's ways it would not.
Maybe.
Someone who's a good mathematician out there, tell us. 'Cause we don't care enough about Monopoly to check it ourselves.
Yeah.
I like how he said he likes his son uses... he said in the email that he's glad that the son uses his powers for good and not evil.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, okay. Well, let's wash Monopoly out of our heads with a trick-taking game.
Or 2.
I'm the Broken Meeple, and this is The Starting Tile, where I talk about alternative gateway games that you might not have considered that can be used to introduce new players to our hobby. Hey guys, thank you for joining me on episode 8 of The Starting Tile, and this time I'm looking at a genre of games which, let's face it, everybody has heard of this. It doesn't matter if you've heard of modern games or not. Chances are, at some point in your life, you've played something like Diamonds or Hearts or any other kind of trick-taking game using a random deck of cards. Well, that's what I'm looking at here. Trick-taking games have come a long way in recent years, having developed some unique and innovative mechanics, and essentially taking it away from just the basic deck of cards and throwing in an odd twist here and there. Now, trick-taking games are very commonly gateway games, and there's plenty to choose from, but I'm going to pick my 2 favourite for you today. So, let's begin with Diamonds. No, I don't mean Diamonds as in the original one. No, I mean Diamonds as in the one by Stronghold Games. This is a trick-taking game where you're collecting diamonds as in the jewel as opposed to the suit. You still have a load of cards, 60 cards numbered 1 to 15 in the standard suits. So, okay, this sounds normal at first. But in each round, you start with a hand of 10 cards, and one player leads with a card and everyone else must play a card following suit if possible. Okay, this sounds exactly the same. Where's the difference here? Well, if you can't follow suit, you immediately get a suit action in the suit you did play. So each of the 4 suits has got an action associated with it. And in front of you, you have a screen where in front of it is a showroom and behind it is your vault. And you're trying to get little diamond crystals, little tokens, from your showroom into the vault. Because if they're in the showroom, other players can nick them. But if they're in your vault, they score more points at the end of the game. You carry on playing it almost like you're playing the original Diamonds, but those extra suit actions that you can do, and the fact that you might actually decide, well, you know, I've got to follow suit, but at least if I can't follow suit, I might as well do that suit action. So I'm going to play a club here and do this and nick his diamond. And then whoever won the trick leads the next trick, and then once you've done a full round of 10 tricks, whoever's taken the most cards in each suit, again, gets that suit action. And if you've taken no tricks, you get 2 diamond suit actions. Basically, it gives you something for being slightly last. This is a really neat twist on an original classic. If you know how to play Diamonds, you'll pick this one up in a flash. And even if you haven't, this is a nice, simple, but fun twist on a classic trick-taking game. Now I want to talk about Nyet. And I literally mean Nyet. Nyet! by Yellow Games. This is a standard trick-taking affair, with a bit of a twist in the pre-phase, because before you start doing the whole trick-taking part, players take it in turns to cross out possible choices for starting player, the trump, the super trump, the number of cards you've got to discard, the value of the tricks that you take. Basically, you've got a grid of these different things that you place tokens on to cover certain areas, so you might decide, right, well, I don't want that to be a trump, because I haven't got many of those. Right, well, I want to go first, so I'm going to cover this guy so that I can go first. And this happens until everyone's used up a certain amount of tokens, and you have effectively got the rules of the round. Then you team up with a partner of your choice from the starting player who gets to choose, and then you play out the round based on those conditions that everyone's collectively chosen, much like a standard trick-taking game. The cool thing with this is being able to choose what is going to apply in each round, and then you have that thing of, right, well, I've chosen those conditions. Now, you were really adamant that you wanted to do this. I reckon we've both got good hands. Let's team up for this round, and we can get the most points. So you have to kind of cooperate with a friend for the brief moment, because at the end you're still against each other, but it just adds that nice little twist. This is a really cool, unique trick-taking game, and certainly worth checking out from Yellow. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this segment. My name is Luke from the Broken Meeple, and I welcome you to the hobby. The starting tile is laid out, the drinks and snacks are ready. Let the games begin.
Mr.
Vassal.
Tom, can you comment on the latest Essen releases?
Where do you keep all your ties?
If I threw water at you during a game, would you yell at me?
And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Evan writes, over the past 2 years, I've become infatuated with designer board games, and my collection has grown exponentially. The biggest problem is finding the time to play and other people to play with. My most reliable gaming partners are my wife, my brother, and my sister-in-law. Every time we get together, I eagerly whip out a new game, go over the rules as thoroughly and user-friendly as possible, and we begin playing. However, on each of my sister-in-law's turns, she begins by asking, "What should I do? What would you do? Would it be better if I did this or this?" These constant questions make her turns excruciatingly long, so I, along with my wife and brother, will help guide her choice and explain why we would make such a decision. But when her next turn rolls around, it's the exact same thing. We recently played a game of viticulture, a very long game of viticulture due to all the questions, and of course my sister-in-law won, but I consider it a group win since she had some help. My brother wanted to play again, so we reset and began a second game. And again, my sister-in-law started asking the same questions on her turns. I politely reminded her that we were playing the same game we had just finished 5 minutes ago, but this did not help. Now, I understand that a person tasked with playing a new game will have some questions about rules and mechanisms and such, and I honestly do not care a bit to teach someone a new game. But she is so worried about playing a perfect game that she will not make her own decisions. How would you get a gamer like this to stop worrying about making mistakes and just play already? I think, at least when we're teaching new games, it used to be sort of a hard and fast rule. You can ask for help for the first game. If it's your first time playing the game, go ahead, ask questions. And we'll lay out the options for you and still sort of guide you into making your own decisions. But yeah, you can ask for help. I think after that, once you've played the game once, you're on your own. You have to play your own game.
Yeah,
right?
It's up to you to how to deal with each person. I have different people in my groups, and some of them are faster at learning rules than others, and I have to be very cautious that I'm like, I can't believe this person hasn't learned this game yet. They're asking the same question again. And there's one particular person in my group who's really good at getting rules to games, but does not listen to my explanation at all, so I have a lot less patience when they ask rules questions. Because they'll say, well, what does this do? And I'm like, I feel pretty confident. I explained that in detail. Other people ask questions. I answered those. But you were busy texting on your phone. What do you want me to do here? But you have to deal with everybody different. Every situation is different. So unfortunately, I can't help you here because I don't know her. I don't know the situation. Everyone's going to be different. Maybe, though, if you make like a public rule about it, like Eric just said, that might solve things somewhat.
You could also, we've also done the first 3 turns. You can ask for help. You could give her 3 help tokens, and she can ask for help at 3 points during the game. If you want to spend those at the beginning of the game, that's fine. But if you want to save them for later, we'll give you input on the last couple turns of the game, and then make her force her to play her own game a little bit. And maybe everybody gets those tokens to make it fair. It's like your lifeline. I'm going to phone a friend. Worth a try.
Ken asks, I was wondering about that Barnyard Roundup game on Kickstarter. It's clearly marketed as a family game. I don't know anything about this game, but I know there's bluffing involved with it. And he says, as a dad with young, impressionable children, I have to wonder if it's wise to install the virtuous value of bluffing or lying to them, so in practice they can become better at it. I will reap the rewards of this when they become teenagers. You could also go into a bit of other mechanisms like auction games, like wheeling and dealing or life skills. Get as much as you can for as little cost you can. Buy low, sell high. He really enjoys playing Sheriff of Nottingham with his kids, wife with friends, but not with his kids. It has a more adult feel to it with weapons and mead. I don't really want to damage their Kickstarter campaign, so I thought I'd email you to discuss it at a later date after the campaign is over. That's fine. I don't think this would actually affect their campaign at all. A couple things in this regard, as someone who is the father of more children than many.
Yep.
You do not have to teach your kids how to lie and how to improve at that skill.
They've got that skill already.
This is a natural thing that they will get. You do not have to necessarily teach them to wheel and deal, although I would argue that that's a very useful skill to have because they're going to have to buy things in life, and they should not buy them because the sign says sale. They should find the best deals they possibly can. And while I really don't like when people min-max in board games, like to the core, in life you can save a lot of money by doing that. But honestly,
I could play these bluffing style games with my kids because we all know it's in the context of that game. We all know we're bluffing there. It's just like playing pretend. Like if I catch a kid say, I'm putting you in jail, I don't think they're going to become a criminal because I pretended to put them behind the rails, the bars and the stairs, and pretend that they're in jail. You know what I mean? My kids pretend a whole lot of weird things it's just fun to pretend. And in a game like Sheriff of Nottingham, which I would defend in this regard, I can understand that, if you don't want to be around the meat and weapons, but to just sit there and go, this is in here, and you're lying in this game back and forth, or Werewolf or other games.
Right.
Again, I don't think you're teaching this skill, first of all, but because I think it's already in them. And you're not condoning it outside the game either. Kids know the difference between pretending in the game and lying outside a game. They really do. Because this is very akin to the same people who say that if you shoot people in a 3D shooting game, that makes you want to shoot people outside the game.
Right.
There's really no evidence linked to that. I would say the same thing here. Do you disagree?
I don't disagree. There's certainly, and in fact, that's a valuable skill, is teaching the difference between a game world and real life. And yes, we're going to bluff here, we're going to lie here, we're not going to tell the truth at all times in this game, but I still want you to realize that this is not a life skill I want you to embrace outside of this game.
And I've done that
in
before.
itself is a lesson.
I've taught a game like Werewolf for the first time with some teenagers, and I'll say, now, I'll teach the rules of the game, and I'll say, now listen, outside this, we all know that lying is wrong.
Right.
But in this game, go for it. And all the kids laugh, and they know that, that's just, it's in the context of that game.
Yeah. Justin says we may have already answered this before, but I don't think so. So we know there's a flood of games that come in each year, and many of them are bad. In a hypothetical situation where all board games belonged to one company, what would you do to grow the hobby? The reason Atari failed was because the market was flooded with awful games. It went out of business for this reason alone. Do you think it's a positive thing that there are so many games released so the few that are good stand out? Do you think that board game stores should only carry good games to make it easier for consumers to find great games instead of carrying a vast collection of bad games? Any new person that walks into a game store would be overwhelmed. In order for a board game to hit a large market, it has to enter the big chains like Target or Walmart. They only select particular games. Not sure if my question makes any sense.
Okay, I don't think it does, actually. I think I know kind of what you're trying to say here. First of all, you say there's a flood of games that come in each year, and many of them are bad. But I would still argue that the vast majority of games, at least in the hobby market, which we're talking about here, are good. Eric and I are giving more negative reviews than we used to, but it's still not half the games we review. Otherwise, it would be a very unenjoyable hobby. Okay.
Yeah.
I do not understand the question. In a hypothetical situation where all board games belong to one company, what would you do to grow the hobby? I'd probably get a job for them.
Yeah, or maybe, start another company.
Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense because it's never going to happen. And then he says Atari failed because the market was flooded with awful games. That's not why Atari failed. Atari failed because they flooded the market with bad games. And they made poor business decisions. That's not why they failed. There's lots of bad games that come out for video game systems now, for sure.
Right.
You can find them at Best Buy in the $1 and $5 bins and $10 bins.
Yes, you can.
Do you think it's a positive thing that there are so many games released that so the few that are good stand out? Well, first of all, I don't know how we're determining good or not here.
Right.
Because
I think the question about board game stores only carrying good games, why would they want to carry bad games? I mean, from their perspective, a good game is one that sells.
I agree. That's the thing. I'm going to carry a game that sells. If I have a board game store, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, I'm not going to sell Munchkin and I'm not going to sell Flux. And no, you can bet they're going to be on my shelves because they sell.
Oh, yeah.
So I think in this instance, don't worry about it. It may seem like there's a lot of bad games out there, but there's a lot of reviewers, and not just us. There's a lot of great reviewers out there who help
tell us which games are good or not. You can find them. And those resources are available to everybody. So Jim says, this is on the same line of things here. With so many new games coming out, so many exciting titles to look forward to, there's so many games he wants to play, but lack of time, money, and opportunity means he'll only ever get to play a small percentage of the games. Half the time I feel like I'm missing out on loads of cool experiences. I was wondering how it is for guys. Out of all the new games and new expansions that are released each year, let's say in America, what percentage do you actually get to play?
I think he meant, I'm wondering how it is for you guys.
Thanks. That actually makes more sense.
Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, there's no way we can ever play all the games. Essen just sent out a press release that said at Essen there will be 1,200 games released. That's more games than me and Eric play in a year combined.
I'm sure. I can only bring home, like, maybe 8 of those.
Well, unless you're buying those micro games, I think you could then bring 100.
Maybe I could stuff a few. Okay, so 12.
Right. There's just so many of these, that are there's so many games out there that my percentage is really small. My percentage is larger than most people. I may even play more games than anyone else in the whole world. I don't know. I'm probably in the top 20 people, right? But
yeah,
even I don't play all the games, and I have to make these decisions. I'm at the point now where a game comes in, and I'm like, all right, Z, you're going to review that. Sam, you're going to review that. And some of those games, I'm never going to play. And Sam will be like, that was a pretty fun game. I'm like, I guess it was. But I just don't have the time to do it. And Z said that, I think it's might have been in our recent top 10 list, or we were just talking about it. He said that there's so much entertainment content in the world, you cannot do it all. You cannot do it all. So if you worry about doing it all, you're going to have a whole lot less fun in life.
I certainly feel that way, about television shows. There's a bunch of series on Netflix that are getting all sorts of great press that I haven't even touched. Because I can't devote the time to following those things.
And you may never watch them.
Right. Yeah.
You may never see some of this stuff. You may never go to see a certain Broadway show or go shoot Ghostbusters with a gun or all these different things. So you just have to pick some that you can do and have a lot of fun doing those. And that's the way it was with games. If you get caught up in, there's a new game coming out and Vassal gave it an amazing review and I really have to play it. No, you don't. Just pick a few and really have fun with those. And don't worry about what you might be missing, because that's what makes Gen Con unfun for a lot of people and conventions.
Oh, it's too much?
Right, they're running around. I missed this. Like at Gen Con, every year I miss the throwing pennies at Cardhala.
Yeah, that's at 10 o'clock or 10:30 on Saturday, and we're always doing something else.
And you know what? That's okay. I couldn't make that. I didn't get to do True Dungeon this year. There's probably 1,000 events I didn't get to do, right?
Right. Yeah.
I just have to be good with that. Otherwise, I would never enjoy anything. It's like when you go to the restaurant. You really can only get one, well, if you're really hungry, 2 things off that menu.
2 things on the menu.
So just get them and enjoy them. Don't look at everyone else's plate and go, oh, wish I'd ordered that.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way about games.
You mentioned, Gen Con being overwhelming. I think, Jim, if you pick a smaller convention, that's a good way to not spend as much but get exposed to more games. You can walk around and see what other people are playing, sign up for some events that are going to let you play some of these games that are on your want-to-play list, and sort of knock a few off more than you normally would during a normal game day, and actually get to play some of these that you've been dying to try. You, again, aren't going to get to everything. But a smaller convention that has lots of open gaming might be a great way to knock a few off your list. Adam says, well, I don't have a problem with multiple winners in games. I do have a problem with some tiebreakers. I don't like tiebreakers that use something that already contributed points as the tiebreaker. For instance, in Lords of Waterdeep, the tiebreaker is the amount of gold, but we already received points for the gold, so the person with the most gold is essentially getting more points for free. I dislike the normal tie-breaking convention so much, I'd rather just tie. If we both scored the same amount of points, then why are someone's points better than someone else's? Wouldn't a much better tiebreaker convention deal with turn order? In poker, any leftover chip goes to the player who was forced to act first in the hand because they had a disadvantage by going first. Wouldn't every game do better to adopt this tiebreaker convention? Some games, the person who acted first would win, and some games, the person who acted last would win.
I don't actually see a problem here, Adam. A lot of games, turn order doesn't matter that much, or they've already fixed the turn order by giving the person who goes second more money than the person who goes first.
Yeah.
So that's already even, so why should the person who goes first get the tiebreaker or the person who goes last? I think having a resource in a game count as the tiebreaker is a great idea. I'd rather that than tying. I'd rather punch myself in the face than tie.
I'd like to know that's the case up front, though.
Well, right, and that's fine. You're right. Sometimes we open the rule book. Okay, there's a tie and most money. Well, had I known that, I wouldn't have done that. Right, I understand that. One of my favorite T-shirts, I never did get a copy, but I meant to. But it said, "Money isn't everything, but it's a tiebreaker in Power Grid." I've always liked that shirt because in Power Grid there's a lot of ties and money matters there. But in any other game where money is the tiebreaker or whatever it might be, I like that because that makes that slightly more valuable to everything else, and you need to keep that in mind. You probably won't tie, but you never know. And in our group, I don't think a game goes by, especially a Euro-style game, where someone, at least like 2/3 of the game, someone says, by the way, what's a tiebreaker? Because they want to know just in case. And I like that because it gives focus. And I like when there's multiple tiebreakers. You usually don't need more than two. You usually, but you better have it so that there is no possible way for there to be a tie.
Right. I mean, when did you say people usually ask? About a third of the way through?
No, usually like 2/3. We're starting to do final things, and then it's like, okay, I got extra resources here. By the way, what's a tiebreaker? And I'll say, oh, it's the most resource cubes. Oh, well, then I better hang on to some of these.
Exactly. That's almost exactly what I was going to say. 2/3 of the way through is usually, if I'm teaching the game, I may have mentioned the tiebreaker when I first, taught the rules, but people have forgotten. And so I will often, at that point in the game, say, oh, by the way, most money wins, but tiebreaker is going to be gold cubes. And people go, oh, okay, good, thanks. And because it could matter at the end of the game, that could play into your strategy. But it's not necessarily something you need to know at the very beginning, and it's certainly not something you want to find out after everyone's done.
Alrighty, well, thanks everyone for your questions. You can always send us questions at dicetower@gmail.com. Let's learn about a board game.
Oh, hey, Future Eric here. So, I'm thinking of installing a light here in the studio that'll flash from time to time with a little label underneath it that says, Tom messed up again. And then when it goes on, I'll know that I need to be summoned to the booth to tell you something like this. So, up next, as Tom just alluded to, we were supposed to play a biography of a board game talking about which. And eagle-eared listeners will already know that last week we played that very same segment. After Tom had announced that we were doing a new segment called Board Game Biopsy, which we were supposed to have played last week, but instead Tom took the file for the which biography of a board game. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a brand new segment that actually is called Board Game Biopsy. Enjoy.
Hello, this is Jackie, and welcome to the first episode of the Gaming Biopsy. Gaming Biopsy is an effort to go inside a game, try to look under the cover, and analyze its mechanics in details to see how they connect and how they modify each other, making one game different from another. Today in particular, I'm going to discuss BloodBourne, the newly released card game by Cool Mini or Not and designed by Eric Lang, presented at Gen Con 2016. In each turn of BloodBourne, players will simultaneously choose and then sequentially resolve an action card allowing them to damage a monster, which basically means partaking of a points pool that is presented to them. It is true that the cards that are played, beside telling you how many points you can collect from the monster, also interact slightly with the other players, for example, jumping ahead in turn order so to grab some points before someone else. And it is true that there is an interesting timing when you kill the monster, so when the last points are collected, in order to get some bonus tracks that will be important at the end of the game. However, even with these modifications, the game would be quite boring if the next step and the next mechanic hadn't been added on top of this layer, and that is the risk of dying. According to Eric Lang, that was the thing that impressed him the most when he played BloodBourne, the video game, that you would die over and over again throughout the course of the game. Therefore, it is not surprising that that became such a crucial mechanic in his board game design. Every turn, before you can collect your points, the monster will damage all of the players, usually in the same amount. Therefore, there is the risk that the monster will kill you before you can even collect the points, which would make your opponents very happy, you very unhappy, and this creates a degree of uncertainty that completely breaks with the otherwise monotonous flux of the game. The risk inherent in the exploding dice through which the monster inflicts damage on you makes the thrilling even higher. The two elements of the game, surviving and collecting points from the monster, are tied up by the insertion among the cards that you can play to gather points from the monster of a special one called the Hunter's Dream to fit with this dark hunting monsters theme of the game that allows you to take less damage in that very round, and if you survive to the end, bank your otherwise temporary points and recover all of your health. So this increases the uncertainty. Even in the round where you are bowing out, you risk dying, but at the same time it gives you a way to time your risk-reward push. Finally, on top of all of these mechanics, there are some nice additional cosmetics, so to speak, details. For example, when you die or when you retire from the combat for a round, you get an upgrade, meaning a stronger card. And of course, all of the monsters are different, they do different things, they influence the game status and the gameplay in a different way. But overall, these three mechanics of collecting points, surviving, and when to bow out create an experience that I think is very fun, and I suggest you all check it out. This has been Jackie with Board Game Biopsy.
It's time for the Dice Tower's Question of the Week, sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., in which our team of gaming experts answers one of your questions, thus increasing the odds that someone will get it right. This week's question: what board game, if played on live television, would make you stop and watch?
Hello everyone, this is Glenn Flaherty from The Sweet Spot, and that game is going to be Escape the Curse of the Temple, because it's real time, it's quick, it's frantic, and there's that sense of urgency to it. And it's one of those games that, if it were to be broadcast, will be completely independent from the personalities of the people playing it. I remember seeing Arado do a run-through of it, and I thought the game was captivating. Normally I'm there because of his commentary, not for that one. So Escape the Curse of the Temple.
Hey everyone, this is Tim Jeanette, the Metal Meeple. Now, party games would be an easy answer to this, but I'm going to go a little deeper and say Mage Wars. If I was to see this on like ESPN, like a broadcasting a live tournament, such as like Magic the Gathering style, that would just be amazing, especially if the players were narrating what they were doing and everything. Oh, it would just be really, really fun to see some competitive players set up with good cameras and such and just have at it on the board. It would just be really, really fun to watch. Anyway, Mage Wars is my choice.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Zielinski, and I really want to see Wits and Wagers on TV. I know I've seen a couple of sketches for some mock-ups and to see if they can do it on TV, and boy, I think that would be a big hit, and especially with the game being sold in Target and stuff like that. It's got some name recognition. I think that would be an excellent way to propel board games even further into the mainstream.
Hello chappets, it's Barry here. When I lived in the UK, there were two programs that I enjoyed watching. One was called The Great Egg Race, and the other one was called Scrap Heap Challenge. In these shows, teams would have to build a machine that would have to complete a task or race some weird obstacle course. So obviously, if Galaxy Truckers ever made it to the TV screens, I'd be there in a shot. Watching people build spaceships and seeing them drastically fail in their missions would be extremely hilarious and fun entertainment for me. Although I don't think I'd see it in my lifetime.
Hello, this is Ignacio Trzewicek, Portal Games.
And this is Stephen Bonacore. We are Board Games Insider.
And I'd love to see famous celebrities playing Time's Up, which is one of the best party games. It's really, really funny, and with celebrities making all these funny characters, that would be probably a blast.
I think Codenames would be a really interesting game to watch celebrities or anybody play, and with commentary saying like, "Oh, they missed the fact that so and so word is going to be bad for them to get." So I think that would be a really interesting Codenames.
Hey, Ronan and Sean from the Game Pit. When I'm watching any sort of competition on TV, I like to get inside the competitors' heads. And for me, I think I'd like to see Dixit with a format that allows me to play along and try and guess what people are talking about, and allow me to shout at the TV when people make crazy decisions.
And my choice has been a game that I actually always thought would make a great quiz show game, and it's Codenames. It's very simple, very easy, but a lot of depth in those words and trying to string them together. So I think Codenames would make a great TV show, and I'd watch it.
Hey everybody, it's the Board Game Point of View. Gentlemen, if we're going to watch a board game on television, what's that going to be?
Lifeboat.
But they're actually role-playing it.
And people literally die.
The sharks are released.
Yeah.
In front of a live studio audience.
So it's just like on another lifeboat.
Right?
Next to the...
I feel like the audience should then get to vote as to what is going to float past the lifeboat.
Yeah. Including corpses. Right. You know, like the live audience from before. But they're all wearing paraphernalia for the show. Wait, these look like fans. No.
Rebecca and Hunter here from Family Showdown. If I were to see the board game Flick 'em Up played live on TV, I would stop and watch it. This is the Old West shootout game with its amazing 3D wooden components and the storyline premises that rely on dexterity for the victory.
Although Flick 'em Up is a blast to watch, the first thing I thought of was reverse charades. So I was walking through BGG Con late one night, and a group of people were screaming and yelling and having a blast, and I stopped to watch, and next thing I know, I was participating.
Hey folks, this is Graham from the Four Corners of the Board. What game would I stop to watch on TV? That's easy. Something I can play along with at home that's not just trivia based. The one that worked well for me was actually on the Dice Tower 24-hour live gaming stream, and that game is Concept. I love guessing along with the crew based on the clues that were given, and I would definitely watch that again to see if I can match wits with those that are playing.
Hey, this is Paul Owen of Dice Tower News. I would love to see a knockdown, drag-out session of Pitch Car on TV. It has the visuals, dexterity, and dynamics that television demands, and there is never any doubt who is winning at any moment of the race or the significance, success, or failure of every player's turn. Excitement at every turn, the game for television is Pitch Car.
This is Roy Caney from Epic Gaming Night, and who actually watches live TV now that the internet's a thing? Anyway, I actually watch quite a few live plays of video games, and I really enjoy watching games of Cosmic Encounter. I always think it's crazy how the different players are going to interact with each other, and who's going to stab someone in the back, and who can get to 5 planets first. It's always exciting and interesting seeing how those games unfold. Cosmic Encounter.
Hi, my name's Eddie. And I'm Tony. We're from the Start Space podcast, and this week we're talking about the games that we would stop and watch on TV. For me, I think the most entertaining would be a dexterity game, and I'm thinking Dungeon Fighter. If you had a bunch of celebrities throwing dice with each other's hands and stuff, that'd be awesome, and I would stop and watch that in a heartbeat.
I would pick Millennium Blades. I actually think that having multiple people sitting at the table doing trading, buying, and then eventually dueling each other would be really cool, and then seeing commentators try to explain everything would be hilarious.
And it's run by William Shatner for some reason?
Hey guys, Broken Meeple, and we've already seen this one played live on TV, well on YouTube technically, and that's because the Dice Tower play it live on all of their marathons. Cosmic Encounter. In the end, I want interaction between players, whether it be lying, bluffing, or just complete trash-talking lunacy, and Cosmic Encounter would provide that in spades. You'd have different alien combinations every week, you'd have different people just shouting at each other, or even if it was the same people playing the game who love it, just lots of shouting and trashing and bluffing and negotiation. It would be a really good fun one to see from almost like a bit of a reality show perspective. So, Cosmic Encounter. Not sucking up here, I agree, that would be a good choice.
Well, our contributors took a couple of my top choices. Codenames, I think, would make a strong game show. That would be, like, if you're talking about the next Password, which was a fantastic game show, I think Codenames would work very well. But a concept would also be fun. I really enjoyed doing that in the live stream when I got to come down to Florida and having the audience play along. That was a lot of fun. So if I can't pick those, how about Spyfall? You know, if you're able to look at, you know, have the under table cameras like for a poker show, and you could see what people are looking at, or even maybe not showing what the roles are so that the audience has to play along, that might be an interesting discussion panel show playing Spyfall. I would enjoy watching that.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to point out to folks that we have a Facebook page, The Dice Tower, and I've really worked hard over the past couple of weeks to put this together and get it proactive and have a lot of things on it. Have all our stuff posted there, our shows and everything, so it's a good way to keep an eye on everything that's going on.
Cool.
And so I asked a question there and got a lot of responses.
Yeah,
so I just want to read some
135 responses or something?
I'm up to 201 on mine.
Oh, I checked earlier in the day.
So, here's what some people said. Kevin said that he thinks the most eye-catching game would be Ugtect.
Oh.
Because this is a game where a bunch of grown men and women are playing with children's blocks while two of them stand near the table, speak complete gibberish, flail their bodies in bizarre ways, and smack people upside the head with an inflatable club. If you walk by that and don't stop to admire the sheer insanity of it, there might be something wrong with you.
I would watch that, yes.
Or William said Hungry Hippos. It's not technically a board game, but it would be fun to see you guys go retro daft for a session. So a lot of these people were taking it as in we are doing it on ours.
Yeah, what if we did it? Yeah.
But like play Kerplunk and Buckaroo. Actually, I'd play Kerplunk on our show. Jorge says Captain Sonar and Space Cadets Dice Duels, especially if you have top-down camera angles. That might be interesting.
Hmm.
And a lot of people actually said that they would not like to watch board games. Most board games wouldn't be good watching them. But a game, Jean-Paulo said, a game with a high eye-catching factor like Cash and Guns could work. Or a game like I, Dark Overlord with the right guests and hosts could be entertaining. And he said the same for Spyfall. So I agree on that, you know.
Yeah.
This person says Monopoly, Jerome, the sheer agony people would be going through would be priceless entertainment. That's not exactly what I would recommend, though. And honestly, I think a lot of times people think things will be much more interesting to watch than not.
Yeah. Well, remember there was Hasbro's Game Night that was on TV a few years ago, and they played sort of versions of some board games, some more faithfully than others. They had like an 8-person giant Bop It that was fun to watch. If I ever stumbled across that, that was fun to watch for a few minutes.
Yeah, well, it's fun to watch. I mean, I love when Jimmy Fallon does his...
Yeah, like Catchphrase or Charades.
Or whatever board game he's doing. I just saw one recently he put up a giant Hungry Hippos game.
Nice.
Where the people were the hippos and another person would slide them in.
Yes. Well, that was a YouTube video that went viral, so I can see how he would have grabbed onto that.
Right, so I like that idea. Mm-hmm. Lars says Dungeon Fighter.
Yep.
He said because it could be watched with laughter even without knowing most of the rules. and that's a big deal because a lot of games, there's a lot of rules in games, and it's hard to watch a game unless you know the rules. Tim said Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, or Time Stories with the right players. Although that would kind of ruin Time Stories, but it would be interesting to watch people make choices.
Yeah.
Now, this one's interesting. Kelsey said Viticulture. See, this is the kind of game that I think would not. Because she says that she tries to lure friends to play. It's one of the best worker placement games. The theme is well, but you have to realize that playing a game like that is super fun. Watching people is not so interesting.
There's a lot of thinking that goes into that one, unless you narrate everything you do.
Bonnie says live action King of Tokyo. Or Tara Meeple City, she said, either way, people in kaiju costumes making monster noises. Count me in to watch. Or she said real life Dead of Winter.
Duh?
Corey said diplomacy for the meltdowns.
Yeah.
That would be that watching a game of diplomacy. Now, parts of it would be boring, right? Because there's people sitting around thinking, writing down their moves.
Right.
But if you could condense it, like just cut it. And
right.
have
With a whole lot of
talking,
confessionals and, group discussions. And if you shot it as a reality show.
I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference between that and like a normal reality show.
Exactly. It would be like watching Big Brother.
Derek says any game where you could play along. Like Codenames is a perfect example, or Wits and Wagers was actually considering a TV show at some point.
They were. I don't know whatever happened with that. I imagine at this point it's probably been dropped.
Possibly. As I'm going through these answers, I'm thinking that Captain Sonar is getting a lot of responses here.
Captain Sonar would be fun to watch with the overhead camera and maybe a map of where everybody is. If you could have a real-time map of where the two subs are, then you would have context for what's going on and what the subs are able to do and when they're passing each other in the night and where they think each other are. That might be cool.
Nick says, Happy Salmon, the silent variant. It would only last a minute, but it would be gloriously funny. I think Happy Salmon would work maybe as part of a larger thing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, now we're going to go to the Happy Salmon round. that sort of thing. And honestly, any party game would work. Any party game, whether it's Balderdash, or I should say any, but a lot of games, especially one of our contributors mentioned Reverse Charades.
Right.
Just really good there. Rob had a good idea. He said he thinks Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space would be really fun, provided the TV feed had an overlay where the viewers could see where everybody is.
Yes.
Or maybe only some of the people.
Maybe.
Like poker shows show you the hands, and you have to figure out what you would do in the same situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe they only show the human players.
Oh, that would be interesting. Well, you know who the aliens are, but you don't know exactly where the aliens are. And
right.
Each time you said where they are, they would put it, like, here's the two different spots. And you'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, thank you. And there's hundreds of comments we did not read, so you can always go check those out on the Facebook page and read them yourself. But this is something, people always say, there needs to be TV for board games, and it's really a hard thing to do. And someday I will make a top 10 list of the best games, I think, for TV. But that day is not today. Actually, it's time to end today.
So
let's stop it now. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And this has been The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 473, was recorded on August 25th, 2016. Coming up next week, it's our top 10 Press Your Luck games. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Successful fishing trips provided by The Networks. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at coolstuffinc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at dicetower@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including the Out of Game podcast, 20 Minutes of Filler, the Push Your Luck podcast, the D6 Generation, Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and Board Game Breakfast at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. So of these suggestions, Tom, which one would you personally want to host?
Oh, man, if I wasn't a board game reviewer, I think hosting a game show is like my second favorite thing I'd love to do.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
I think I would like to host Ugtech. I think I would like, I'm sorry, sir, that was too hard. This man has a mild concussion.
You go to the penalty box. I'm sorry.